It's a lovely day in the neighborhood, Katie.
Yes. It's not here. We got storms today. Yesterday was really great, but then today we had crazy storms move through, and it's rather dark and ominous outside right now. But
like a Nancy Drew novel.
Yes, it is. Wind in the trees. So I had one of the most, as you would say, unhinged girl dinners the other night, and I thought of you because I thought if you saw me eating this, you would be like, I cannot believe this is what you're eating.
Did it have shredded cheese involved?
Oh, it sure did.
Oh, right. Now you've piqued my interest.
So I don't remember what night this was, but Richard was gone. So I was like, what am I going to have for dinner? And I was thinking about ordering takeout. And then I was like, no, I shouldn't spend the money. So I'm like, well, let's go see what's in the pantry and in the fridge. What can I scrounge up for myself?
Okay.
And instead of making a legitimate meal, because I have plenty of frozen stuff that you would throw in a skillet or something and heat up. But I was just like, no, that seems like too much effort.
Sometimes you just want a chill night. No cooking involved.
Yep. Minimal and I was watching my PBS masterpiece show, Wolf Hall, and I was definitely having a cozy night in. So I opened the fridge and I started out with an appetizer of a cheesy potato casserole that was left over from my parents.
I mean, leftover, that's a solid meal right there.
Yep. But I heated it up in the air fryer, which I think was genius on my part.
Yeah. Did it make it crispy?
It did. It kind of gave it a little crisp on top and all bubbly again. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yep. Instead of just hitting the microwaves. And then I got in the pantry and I pulled out, there's a bag of salt and vinegar chips, which is one of my favorite kind of chips.
Yeah.
So,
addictive.
Second potato, of course.
We're going to have a Hobbit meal. Maybe call it Hobbit meal. How many versions of potato can you have?
Yes.
In a
just
meal?
Those two for this one. Yeah.
Oh, darn. Okay.
But the salt and vinegar potato chips, I did end up crunching some of them up and putting it on top of the cheesy potato casserole.
Genius.
For extra crunch.
Genius.
Yeah.
Well,
and a little bit of yes, acidity, right? Because this potato casserole is basically like cheese, sour cream, and like 2 sticks of butter mixed with potatoes.
The classic Midwest hot dish.
It totally, it totally is. So I was like, some salt and vinegar chips, that'll add acidity.
Yeah,
absolutely. Like, I'm a chef. Okay, so anyway, then I decided that from our freezer, I would get out these chicken taquitos that I had from Trader Joe's. And I also made those in the air fryer. And I dipped them in salsa and sour cream.
Nice.
Yeah, so I also had taquitos. And
I've had the black bean ones that Trader Joe's has, and the black bean
ones.
Ooh,
I didn't see the black bean ones. I'll have to look because I was thinking about that when I was eating them. I was like, they should make a bean one because I was thinking of
they
you.
have black bean taquitos.
Yeah, I'll look for that next time. They were delicious. Then I rounded out the meal with some Skittles and
gotta get your fruits. Gotta get your
some
strive for five fruits and vegetables. Get your fruits in there.
And mini Cadbury eggs, which is my favorite Easter candy.
Yes. Perfect. You had that finishing crunch to go along with the starting crunch.
So that was my dinner. 0 nutritional value, but it was so delicious.
I'm not gonna lie. When you said it was unhinged, I was expecting much more unhinged than that.
Really?
To me, that's just like, a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
Okay.
I don't know.
I felt like it was the weirdest combination ever because I was just like chips and taquitos and candy.
Sounds like a perfect night in to me.
I think I had a bowl of cereal later. It felt unhinged to me at the time because I did have the option of making some spaghetti with a nice sauce,
I mean, just the taquitos alone, that makes it a meal right there.
Yeah, that was but I couldn't wait for the taquitos, so that's why I had to have the potatoes first, because I was like, these taquitos are going to take 10 minutes. I'm hungry now. It was good, though.
Nice.
I'm Katie.
And I'm Emily.
We're two long-distance best friends with a passion for learning about all the things that make everyday life interesting.
With my PhD in geography
and my master's in library science,
doing deep dives on topics is our idea of a fun time together. We'll share our findings with you on
Researching the Obvious.
Some people out in podcast listener world have made comments that we talk about food a lot on this podcast.
Yes. And what about it?
I'm just saying, this podcast is about the things that make everyday life interesting. That's in the intro. And food is what makes life interesting.
I agree.
Right.
It's what makes it the most interesting for me, maybe.
You know, everyone out there, thanks for the comments and the feedback. And we'll take that under advisement, but food is interesting. And so we're gonna
keep talking about it.
Bring in this episode of food.
Yeah. Plus, our relationship has a long history of food-related things. That was something that we immediately had in common.
And we've talked about this before, but I think it doesn't hurt to reiterate. I do think that the regionality is really what caused us to talk so much about food, because growing up in different locations, then going to school in New England, and also having pretty different ethnic backgrounds.
Yeah, definitely.
As well, my family being Eastern European, I just grew up eating a lot of Eastern European foods, and your family being Japanese, obviously very different foods. I feel like it just provided a lot of discussion of the types of foods that were common in our households.
Yes, agreed. And you're right, coming from two different regions and then going to school in a different region, it just led to many comparison conversation or like an I wonder, because so many differences and things that I hadn't thought about before, just because when you live in one region most of your life, you don't think about that.
Yeah. I feel like in terms of condiments, though, I was always very impressed by your love of mayonnaise.
Yes, it's my favorite. It's funny because when I was doing research on mayonnaise on the internet, they definitely call out that mayonnaise is a divisive condiment. That some people really, really hate it. And I have met these people.
Yeah.
And some of them are even my friends.
Some are my family.
Yes. And so it's crazy to me to think about hating mayonnaise, because I just think it's like the best condiment ever. Like, it tastes delicious. It's creamy. A sandwich is not a sandwich without mayonnaise.
I mean, I like mayonnaise. I just feel that it's fine to have a nice spread of it on a sandwich. But
yes,
I feel like I like mayonnaise and you love mayonnaise.
Yes.
I feel like it's another level of mayonnaise
my
appreciation.
Spread of mayonnaise can be thick. When we would go to the dining hall and they would have chickwitches on the menu, which is just a fancy way of saying a chicken patty that you can put on a bun and make your own sandwich. Yeah, I remember being very excited because I'm like, oh man, I get to make my own chicken sandwich and put exactly how much mayonnaise I want on it. Because, you know, when you go to a restaurant or say a fast food drive-through and you ask for extra mayonnaise, my version of extra mayonnaise and their version of extra mayonnaise does not usually line up. My rule of thumb for reference, and I'm probably going to gross a lot of people out with this, but my rule of thumb is if you have mayonnaise on a sandwich and you press the sandwich together, the mayonnaise should be coming out of the side.
Oh, no. That's so much mayonnaise.
Yeah, it is a lot of mayonnaise. And sometimes I will like put mayonnaise on a sandwich, and then as I'm eating the sandwich, like if I take a bite and I'm like, that wasn't quite enough mayonnaise, then I'll just like dip the sandwich in mayonnaise as well, so that each bite gets more.
This is a level. This is a level.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's.
I used to work with a woman from Belgium, and I think she would appreciate your love of mayonnaise because they dip their French fries in mayonnaise in Belgium, and that's the same sort of situation, I feel.
Yeah. Yep.
She was very passionate about mayonnaise.
I do enjoy a French fry in mayonnaise, but I like to do a mayonnaise dip and then a ketchup dip because I'm that American. So I do a little bit of both.
Well, Katie, you'll be excited to know since we're talking about condiments today.
Yes.
You'll be excited to know that the most popular condiment in the United States is mayonnaise.
Really?
Yes.
Not ketchup.
I know. I was also shocked. Based on sales, and this includes all brands, so don't come at me with like, it's because Hellman's is whatever. No, this is all brands, including generic brands.
But not
Mayo,
salad dressing, aka Miracle Whip.
Right, yes. Miracle Whip is not included. That is a separate thing.
Right.
So mayonnaise, Duke's, Hellman's, whatever else.
Kraft,
best choice. They're all mayonnaise. It is a $164 million in sales industry. Number one condiment in the US, mayonnaise.
Yeah. I mean, we buy mayonnaise pretty often. I just bought it this weekend.
Do you have a personal favorite mayonnaise?
So I've always been a Hellman's girl because that's what I grew up with. So that's usually my preference. But I will say that I have started using Duke's. Yeah. And I do love the Duke's.
It is good.
But I still appreciate Hellman's. So I would say they're about on the same level for me. I would be just as happy with Hellman's. And I really love using the Duke's mayo in recipes. I do feel if you're going to make a quote unquote salad, you know?
Yes.
Like potato salad or things like that. I feel like it's better for that. There's a lot of haters out there and that's okay. You can hate it, but it's delicious. And I think you're missing out.
I feel like the condiments that are in someone's fridge maybe tell you about that person.
Do you know how many condiments you have if you were to approximate? Because I counted ours.
Oh, you counted yours? Dang, I should have done that. It's excessive. But it's because I am married to a condiment king. Condiments on everything, right? There's some people I personally feel, because it's not just him, there are just certain people that have to have a condiment with every meal that they eat. I am not like that. I like a condiment, but I don't need a condiment with every meal. And I'm talking like every meal. I have to have a condiment. So the number of condiments in my fridge, I mean, you open the fridge, the door has all the spots. The whole thing. We have two doors. The whole thing.
We have two doors of condiments. Yeah.
The whole thing. The whole thing is condiment. So I do not know a specific number of condiments, but I can guarantee you it's high.
Yeah. So I counted our open condiments in the fridge, and that came in around 28. And that does not include the condiments that we have not yet opened in the pantry that I've just purchased to try at some point. So we have more than that, but those are the open ones that we are actively using.
We also have condiments that are open in our pantry, though, because some you don't
the
have
ones that don't need, refrigerated.
So we also have an entire pantry shelf.
Yes. Yep.
I know. It's a lot, I guarantee you.
One thing I remember from college is that when we started living in the apartments in particular, so we had our own kitchen and so we could plan some meals.
Yeah.
That always in our fridge was sour cream. And that was, and that was your doing because like, not like I'd never had sour cream, but it wasn't a common thing that I would add to a dish necessarily. But then you had all sorts of ideas of how you could use sour cream and what sour cream goes into. So that kind of I had never really thought about sour cream as a staple condiment before, or even a staple ingredient in a lot of things until I lived with you. And now I always have a tub of sour cream in our fridge.
I'm glad I could influence you with my Hungarian ways.
Yes.
The joke I have is that as someone who comes from a Hungarian heritage, a lot of our foods that we would eat were Hungarian. And in my opinion, to make Hungarian food, you just need to add sour cream and paprika, and then it's Hungarian. Yeah. But it's a joke, but in fairness, like Hungarian cooking, you just have sour cream in all of it.
Yeah. Well, and let me tell you,
it's a staple.
I'm on board with that. And I have started adding it to all of my foods as well.
What's funny though is I grew up, we put sour cream on everything, probably because it was just in our fridge because we used it so much for recipes and stuff. But I don't know that I would consider sour cream a condiment. To me, I feel like sour cream is more of an ingredient than a condiment.
Yeah.
But I guess, like, what is a condiment though? Right? I feel that gets into a weird territory of what constitutes a condiment versus a food or an ingredient.
Yes. And I think in the case of sour cream, you have a Venn diagram situation of ingredient and condiment, and sour cream is in the middle. That's what I think. I did look up the definition of a condiment because I was also curious. Yes, I'm also curious what classifies as a condiment. Mm-hmm. I went with Merriam-Webster's definition.
Classic.
So they define a condiment as something such as a seasoning, sauce, garnish, or topping that is added to food, usually after the food is prepared, and that enhances or adds to its flavor. So I feel like that's a very broad definition.
That is.
Broader than I thought it would be, because they mention seasoning, sauce, garnish, or topping, and just that it's usually after the food is prepared to make it a condiment.
Right.
So,
I mean, okay, we've talked about Old Bay on this show before.
Right.
Old Bay would definitely constitute a seasoning condiment.
Right.
For sure.
A condiment is kind of the broader bucket or definition or umbrella term for a lot of different things that could be added to food. Again, it says usually prepared. They leave themselves a little out there, but I would say after food is prepared. When I think of a condiment, it's something that you add to it. You have not put it in as part of the cooking process.
Right.
That's what I think.
It's maybe not in the recipe ingredient list.
Right.
Per se.
Right. But it says serve with sour cream, or serve with X, Y, and Z.
True. It makes me think, though, that because we had sour cream in our fridge, we would put it on chili and baked potatoes and tacos.
Yeah, that would be I guess baked potatoes and tacos would definitely be something that we had sour cream on, but I didn't usually put sour cream on chili or on other things like vegetables. You put it on vegetables, so I was like, that's brilliant.
I mean, make some Hungarian cauliflower sometime. Just slather sour cream all over cauliflower. Do it. Yeah,
it's fantastic. It opened up my whole world, my condiment world.
That is a pretty broad definition, though. So it's basically anything that you're going to sprinkle or dollop or squeeze on top of your food after it's already done.
Clearly, we're only going to cover a few today because, let me tell you, some condiments have a very long history. So
yes,
we had to only pick a few to really hone in on.
Well, we know mayonnaise is the most popular condiment in the U.S., but do you want to know some of the other popular condiments?
Ooh, yes, I do. I'm very interested to know.
As a Midwestern girl, you may be unshocked to hear that the second most popular condiment in the U.S. is ranch dressing.
Yeah. You know what's funny, too? Okay, I am not opposed to ranch, but I do not want it on everything like some people here do.
Same.
There's a barbecue place here that puts ranch on their barbecue, and I'm like, no, don't do that. You already have barbecue sauce.
On top of the barbecue sauce?
Yes. They'll have a barbecue plate where they've stacked a few different things. So, like, I don't know, one of the best ones is like French fries, and then they put like pulled pork on and baked beans, and then it's all slathered in barbecue sauce, and then they drizzle ranch on top, and I'm like, that's unnecessary. I don't know. For me.
Interesting.
Which you may be surprised about since I love mayonnaise so much, but I don't know. I feel like there's also...
Ranch is different, though.
Yeah, it is. But it's creamy, and I don't know.
Yeah, I don't mind ranch. But some people dip their pizza in ranch, or French fries in ranch. People probably put their vegetables in ranch, too.
I don't mind a nice, like, crudite in ranch. But
yeah, if you've got some, like, celery sticks.
I think there's also perhaps a large range of ranches and how they might taste. So at any restaurant, if they make their own ranch, it might be better or worse. I think I've had enough ranches that I'm just like, this is unimpressive. do anything. But maybe there are some really great ranches out there that are more full of herbs and flavor that I would like more. No.
Well, I'm guessing that the $103 million ranch industry per year is probably not a lot of homemade ranches.
Though, yes, that's true.
It's probably more the store-bought
ranch. Right.
Yep.
But I mean, I think there's a difference between if you get Hidden Valley Ranch and just some off-brand. Pretty significant difference.
I'm going to make a bold statement. In terms of creamy salad dressing, though, I'm going to argue that Parmesan peppercorn superior to ranch.
Ooh, I'm on board with that.
Right?
Yeah.
Parmesan peppercorn. If you're a ranch lover, have you tried Parmesan peppercorn? That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. Coming in third is where we get ketchup. Ketchup is in third place for popular condiments, followed by hot sauce as a general category. But I will argue that I feel like this is a questionable fourth place for hot sauce because they include salsa in definition of hot sauce in this Statistica reference, and it's all hot sauce. But I feel like hot sauce is
not
incredibly varied. Well, it's just also incredibly varied. So like
there's a lot.
Like no wonder it's coming in fourth. There's
because there's so many.
A million kinds of hot sauce. Like they're probably including wing sauce in this. They're probably including, sriracha, Cholula, Tabasco, like how many different hot sauces? It just feels like a lot. And to include salsa in there too, I'm like, okay, fourth place, but that feels very broad. And then fifth place is mustard, just for reference.
Okay.
So, but what is funny is one of the condiments I like, I didn't see in that list, which is relish.
Sweet or dill?
Love some relish. Ooh, I feel like it depends. I could go both ways. Yeah. I like both options. I feel like it really just depends on what I'm in the mood for. If I'm in the mood for something a little sweeter or not. I think I like sweet relish on a hot dog and dill relish
That's my favorite.
On a hamburger.
Yeah.
So
I love sweet relish on a hot dog.
But but I'm also would be happy with dill relish on a hot dog too.
I would too. I wouldn't be mad about that.
No. It's
like an excellent condiment.
It's a really good condiment. And what's interesting is that it is one of the oldest condiments in the United States.
Really?
Commercially produced. Yes, one of the oldest commercially produced condiments in the U.S.
Okay.
It dates back, I saw this article from Taste of Home, which I feel like is fairly reputable.
Yeah.
It says that pickle relish is arguably the first true American condiment. And it dates back to before the Revolution in the 1700s, but gained in popularity during the 1850s in particular.
Okay.
And in learning about relish, I ended up down this rabbit hole because relish basically was born out of chutney.
Okay.
And so then I was like, well, what's the difference between chutney and relish?
Yeah, what is the difference?
Yeah. So basically, according to Food Network, chutney is a condiment or spread made from chopped fruit, cooked with vinegar, spices, and sometimes sugar that can be served fresh or preserved. But it's usually associated with a condiment that's preserved. Relish is very similar and could be used interchangeably to chutney. But relishes are typically fermented versus preserved.
Okay.
So like preserved would be like you're cooking it similar to what you would like a jam or something like that. Whereas a relish would be fermented, so you're still cooking it in the vinegar, but you're not getting that jammy consistency, and it's a lot more it's a lot more like vinegar heavy, and the chunks they wouldn't be broken down, they'd still be like full chunks.
So what about something like giardiniera?
Oh, so I have thoughts about that. So giardiniera is actually neither a chutney or a relish, technically
A
speaking,
third Venn diagram circle.
because it is preserved in oil and not in vinegar.
Okay.
Yes.
Interesting.
So giardiniera, I looked this up, and it comes by way of Sicilian immigrants to Chicago area, and the way that these immigrants from Sicily preserved vegetables was in an oil-based method as opposed to a vinegar-based method. So it's a way of like pickling them in oil instead of pickling them in vinegar. Yes. But we think of giardiniera and we don't really think of it being a relish because it has like cauliflower and carrots and all these other things. However, originally, relish also had all of those vegetables in it.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's only recently that American style relish is associated with pickles.
Right. Just a pickle relish.
Yeah. Because if we get back to chutney, so chutney is very common in Indian cuisine.
That's what it makes me think of.
Yeah, it dates back to the 1600s, so it's pretty similar time frame. If, relish is in the 1700s, chutney's in the 1600s. And typical chutneys, you've probably seen like mango chutney at an Indian restaurant, or they have that one that's like onions and tamarind that's more brown, or they have the green, like fresh herb, mint, cilantro chutney.
Ooh, also delish.
Yes, they're all super yummy. So chutneys are pretty common. And actually in India, they'll use the words chutney and relish interchangeably. But so in the US, the first relish recipes that we could find date back to the 1770s in South Carolina. And it's for a relish that's referred to as chow chow. I don't know if you've had chow chow before.
No, I don't think I have.
Okay. Chow chow is a relish that's made from chopped green tomatoes, cabbage, mustard seed, onions, and hot and sweet peppers, and it's in vinegar. It's like a different combination of vegetables preserved in vinegar. So in the 1770s, chow chow was really popular in the South. So that was the first version of relish that existed in the US. The relish that we typically think of, the pickle relish, that started a little bit later in the 1870s. Okay. And that is from the Heinz food company. Heinz, it was started by this son of German immigrants. So he was born in the US to German immigrants. His name was Henry John Heinz. It's the H.J. Heinz. He started his company in 1869. And the first product he sold was horseradish.
Ooh,
that was his main product. But then he expanded from horseradish into relish because relish was getting popular in the US.
It was the up and coming condiment.
Yes, it was. If you look at old Victorian dinner sets and stuff, like dishes, they always have a relish tray for different relishes.
Didn't we see that on the train in the train museum?
Oh, yeah, probably.
Oh, no, it was a celery dish.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry, but there were relish dishes
relish
too.
Trays, yes.
Sorry, yeah.
Relish trays, that was really popular. So relish was the most popular condiment pretty much through all the late 1700s, early to mid 1800s. And Heinz started selling lots of different types of relish. So they made this chow chow relish that was already a popular recipe. And then they started making this other relish called piccalilli relish. Piccalilli relish was based on Indian chutneys. And so it was made from cauliflower, but also had a lot of turmeric, cabbage, onions, carrots, stuff like this in the original recipe. What's interesting is piccalilli relish is still a very popular condiment in the UK.
Oh, okay. I've never heard of it.
Yeah, they'll have it with their breakfast to go with toast and things like this. It's popular. I had never heard of it either, but that one became really popular. And then they introduced a third type of relish, which is more similar to what we would refer to as relish today in the US, which was cucumbers and more of a pickle type of relish. But Heinz today produces a ton of different relishes. Depending on what country you're in, you could get lots of different types of relish. But in the US, relish is most commonly pickle. Fun fact, the reason why Heinz pickle relish is crunchy, though, is because it has cabbage in it.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah. So the reason why Heinz pickle relish has a crunch is because cabbage will hold up more so than a pickle will. So the crunch comes from the little bit of cabbage that's in there with the pickle.
Yeah. So you know what's interesting? I don't think I've ever had Heinz relish.
Oh, really? Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's a popular enough condiment that now you can get any brand. I think I just buy Wegmans brand.
Yeah. I usually get Mount Olive. But that's really interesting. Heinz, okay. Heinz really makes me think about ketchup. I think most people probably would think about ketchup or Heinz 57 sauce, which I didn't even realize was kind of a whole separate thing. I was doing some research on ketchup because that's actually what spurred the idea for this episode, is that I ran across some information that really surprised me, which is that ketchup is not the all-American condiment you might think it to be. The origins are certainly not American. Ketchup to me is like the American condiment. I know it was number 3 on the list. I might also be biased because it's my dad's favorite condiment, and so like ketchup everything, and also like he called it the sauce of the gods. That was the mentality of in our house around ketchup, right? So like ketchup was a very highly valued condiment in our house, but I feel like it is in a lot of American households.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I ran across this information that actually ketchup has been around, or the origins of ketchup started a long time ago. In fact, as far back as 300 BC, which was crazy to me. Yes. And
that is crazy.
In China.
Okay, time out though, because China didn't have tomatoes. Tomatoes
Correct.
Are an American food.
Yes, ketchup was not originally tomato-based.
What?
So, as far back as 300 BC, they have texts that document the use of a fermented paste that was made of soybeans, fish entrails, and some byproducts. And that kind of fish sauce was called ketchup or ketchup, which eventually became ketchup. Yes.
What?
And because it was fermented, it was easy to store on long ocean voyages, and those pastes eventually made their way to the Philippines, where British traders then started to enjoy that.
Okay.
So then the British traders picked it up. They're really liking it. That's early 1700s.
Okay.
They took samples of it home, and then they really messed up the recipe. They're just like, we're going to try to make this, but not make it anything like the original.
Yeah, because they probably didn't have the fish sauce and stuff that was coming from China.
Right. So by the 18th century, they call this a golden age of ketchup, where cookbooks were featuring recipes that were made from oysters, mussels, mushrooms, walnuts, lemon, celery, and even some fruits like plums and peaches.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then those were boiled down into a syrup consistency. So we're very far departed from the original condiment by this time. We're creating almost a chutney at this point.
Yeah.
With the British version.
Right. Okay.
So then that became this highly concentrated condiment that's a little salty, a little bit spicy. It could have a lot of different flavors. And then it wasn't until 1812 that a Philadelphia scientist, James Mees, is credited with the more modern recipe, where he took that British version and then used tomatoes, or what he called love apples, which apparently is what I don't know which one. I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
A tomato is not like an apple. I just want to clarify that.
I know. So anyway, obviously we're talking about two very different condiments at this point, but the evolution was over a really long period of time to get to what we today think of as ketchup.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And then we just are using a bastardized version of the word when it's not even related to fish sauce.
Right.
That's
because that's just like where they got the idea, and then they brought it home, and then they made their version of it, but called it the same thing. Yeah.
That's crazy. You know what I looked up, though? Have you seen people refer to ketchup as catsup?
Yes. What? Okay. Yeah, why?
So I looked that up because I was like, are these the same thing? Why do people spell it catsup?
Yeah.
Well, it goes back to that Chinese thing.
Okay, yes, that makes sense.
Because basically it's just a bastardized version of the word. And so there were several different spellings of ketchup. And the one that was used more frequently in the 1800s was catsup, the CATSUP. Okay. And then Heinz wanted to distinguish their version of it from tomato catsup. And so they called it Heinz tomato ketchup and spelled it with a KETCHUP to distinguish it. And so when Heinz tomato ketchup got super popular and blew up in the ketchup boom of 1890, then other brands started stealing Heinz's spelling of the word.
Okay.
So ketchup is the same thing. Oh, yeah, that was part of Mad Men.
Yeah, because their whole advertising campaign was it's not the catsup versus ketchup thing. Yeah. Right. Peggy presents that as like, Heinz isn't just catsup, it's ketchup or something like that. Like that's their...
Yeah. But apparently it's just two different ways to spell a Chinese word that has nothing to do with tomatoes.
And the ingredients of which are completely different than the original condiment. So I just thought that was bizarre. Yes. Wow. Is modern ketchup as we know it much more recent? Yes. But I mean, the idea of ketchup, the basis of it is actually Chinese.
Right. People probably wouldn't have gotten to where we are now with ketchup without the Chinese sauce.
Right.
Wow.
Yep.
Hey, Katie, remember that time that we wanted to start a podcast based on all of our random research conversations?
Yeah, and we had no idea what we were doing or how we would even make a podcast.
Yeah, that's the time. It was a really good thing we found Podbean, because that made it super easy to upload all of our episodes to multiple streaming platforms.
Podbean is a really simple platform for hosting and publishing your podcast.
So, if you and your best friend are having random conversations that you think should be a podcast, check out Podbean.
And if you do, use our link to get a month free. Podbean.com/obvious. That's PODBEAN.com/obvious.
And become super cool podcasters like us.
World famous.
Yeah, Heinz was crazy. I looked up a bunch of stuff about him because basically the condiment industry in the United States blew up because of Heinz. That company is basically what started all growth of condiments. Okay. And so he started Relish.
So he was a sauce lover like us.
I guess so. But then he started ketchup in the 1890s, and that's when there was this big ketchup boom. People started getting really into ketchup. But one of the reasons why it became a big thing is because he started packaging it in clear bottles so that you could see the color quality of his ketchup versus other companies' ketchup. Because other companies' ketchup, a lot of times the quality was not as good and it would be brown tinge. Okay. But being in clear bottles, you could tell that his ketchup
how red it was.
Yes. And some interesting facts about Heinz factory, which I thought was really cool, actually. He started in Sharpsburg, Pennsylvania, and then by the 1890s, he got so popular that he expanded to several different locations in the US. And then by 1905, he expanded to locations in the UK and Spain. And so Heinz is really this huge
international
company.
Yeah.
Yes, very early on. At the time of his death in 1919, Heinz had 6,500 employees, 25 branch factories, 85 salting stations, 53 tomato stations, and 111 pickle stations.
Holy
worldwide.
Wow.
Yeah. Heinz was also really cool because he pioneered efforts to maintain cleanliness and food quality. So, in addition to the clear bottles, his whole thing was about improving quality of food. He was actually the largest lobbyer to create the Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906. He was the one that did that. And he took a really progressive attitude towards his employees, partly because he wanted to maintain this high quality produce. So he would offer things like free uniform laundering for employees, free weekly manicures for employees.
Man, I bet that really helped with the disease control.
Yes.
It's weird to think back to a time where those employees must wash hands before returning to work just didn't exist. You know
yeah. Yeah. But he also offered other really progressive things for his employees too, like use of a rooftop garden, a library to his employees, a gym, carriage rides through the park on company time.
I want to work for Heinz.
Free self-improvement classes like sewing lessons and things like this he offered. So I'm like, okay, so were you the original tech bro campus back in the 1900s?
Right? Yeah, all the other factories are like, they're never going to get any work done with all of that recreation.
Right, yeah. Carriage rides instead of ping pong tables.
Yeah, we require 20-hour shifts and we don't care how old you are either.
Yeah, but he had dining rooms and stuff and was offering all these really nice perks to his employees. And I found that some of that effort extends to today because according to the Heinz website, they're really working on sustainability and they are trying to become a carbon neutral company by 2050. And by 2025, this year, 100% of ketchup tomatoes will be sustainably sourced. I know.
Okay, I'm impressed, Heinz. I'm impressed. Right? Yeah.
So all your ketchup tomatoes going good.
So were they also a bean company or is that just a Mad Men storyline?
Oh no, they make baked beans and really it didn't really take off in the US, but they're huge in the UK.
Right. I remember them talking about that on Mad Men because Heinz was the big fish account for them. And they wanted to be more focused on ketchup and condiments than the beans in America.
Yeah. In America.
Thanks, Mad Men.
But ketchup, it didn't really become popular in the US until after Heinz produced it. The other condiment that has an excessively long history is mustard.
Oh my God. Yeah, there was a lot about mustard.
So much. Mustard seeds, for example, just the seeds of mustard, those are generally thought to be one of the first plants that were ever cultivated. So one of the first domesticated plants was mustard seeds. And that's why you get all these references to mustard seeds in the Bible, because it's such an old plant. And people have been using mustard seeds in cooking dating back to Syria in 9000 BCE. We're talking centuries upon centuries old.
Yeah.
Mustard seed paste was used in the Zhou dynasty in China, and that dynasty existed between 1046 and 256 BCE. And then Romans made mustard and used it to baste meats. So it was even in a barbecue-esque preparation in Roman times. But it was really during the 10th century in France that it grew quite a bit in France. because mustard was originally brought to France by Romans, and the climate is just really good for growing it.
Okay.
And so monasteries during the Middle Ages in France started to produce mustard as a way to make money for the monastery. But if we also think about what else monasteries produced, which is wine, they would start making mustard paste, but then mixing it with vinegar and wine. And that's where you get all these French mustards like Dijon mustard and stuff that has the white wine or the vinegar in the mustard. So Dijon, France becomes the mustard manufacturing capital in the 14th century. So mustard starts very old.
Mustard and ketchup, man. The OGs.
Yeah. So, but there's also like 80 million kinds of mustard too.
Yeah,
mustard
there's a lot of different seeds.
Yeah. It's so versatile.
Well, I'm glad that you looked up the kind of origins of mustard, because I went down this rabbit hole of all of the different types of mustard, because there are just so many.
There's so many.
And to be fair, we probably have 7 or 8 mustards in our fridge.
Well, I know for a fact that we have multiple kinds of mustard, for sure.
Yeah, but there are even more than what I realized. So 3 types of mustard seeds: white, which is used in the classic yellow mustard; brown, which is used in a Dijon or as a deli mustard or Chinese mustard; and then black for whole grain mustard. And that would be the spicy or seed. Mm-hmm. You mentioned Dijon mustard. So arguably one of the most famous Dijon mustards would be Grey Poupon.
Do you have any Grey Poupon?
Grey Poupon?
Those commercials made it seem like it was so fancy.
Yes. It came on a tray. And I do remember having Grey Poupon in the fridge and feeling very fancy. Like, that's a fancy
I remember
mustard.
Being like, wow, Mom and Dad, we should buy this fancy mustard because it's so fancy.
So in 1877, one of the most famous Dijon mustard makers, which was Grey Poupon, was established. Mm-hmm. It was a partnership between Maurice Grey, who had a unique recipe that contained white wine, and Auguste Poupon, and that was his financial backer. So that's how Grey Poupon came to be. So that's a French mustard. Mm-hmm. And then I also found that there's specific English mustard.
Okay.
I've never had an English mustard, but it seems like every country or region has their preferred mustards. France is pretty famous for Dijon. So as far as English mustard goes, it's made with a combination of brown and yellow mustard seeds, and it's just mixed with water. So no vinegar. So it's like straight mustard, which gives it its unique taste. There's none of that vinegar tang that you would get from other prepared mustards. Then there's Chinese hot mustard. So the little packets that you get with your egg rolls, which I'm sure is maybe not as Chinese as we might think, but still that kind of mustard is made similarly to English mustard. So it's a powder of dried ground mustard seeds that's mixed with water, though the difference between it and English mustard is they use only the hotter brown mustard seeds. So you get that spice or that nose clearing sensation that you get when you eat those. And then Germans, which when I think of mustard, I think of German food.
Absolutely. Right? I feel like Germans have 80 million kinds of mustard. And
they do.
You would just put it on everything. It's this German version of sour cream.
Yes, agreed. Which is why I was also surprised that it didn't originate there, because I was just like, oh, Germany, mustard, definitely. But no, they've just taken mustard from its origins and then created all of these varieties. So Bavarian-style mustards are made from coarsely ground and roasted mustard seeds mixed with vinegar and honey, sugar, or applesauce.
Yeah. Those sweeter mustards. I like those. Those are good.
Yes. Then they have a medium spicy mustard, a Mittelscharfer or Delicatessen. I don't know. I'm not doing my Duolingo German, so I can't really pronounce this. So their medium spicy mustard is a combination of yellow and brown mustard seeds. It's the most popular in Germany, and it's also much more mild. Then they have a sharp or spicy mustard, a scharfer Senf, or an extra scharf.
Okay.
which has a higher percentage of brown mustard seeds than the medium spicy one and is therefore hotter. It's more spicy. So those would be used as a garnish for cold cuts and grilled sausages like bratwurst or smoked meats. And then they also have a Dusseldorfer, which is fun to say. So Dusseldorfer comes from Germany's first mustard factory, which opened in 1726 in Dusseldorf. And that city is still known for their mustard production. So this kind of mustard is more like Dijon, but it tends to be on the hotter side and a little bit darker in color. And then a brand that you might know that you can get here in the US is Coops. So that's a Dusseldorf, Dusseldorfer style mustard.
Interesting.
I also discovered that there's a mustard museum.
Amazing. Amazing.
Yes, in Middleton, Wisconsin. So,
add that to your road trip. Yeah, next time.
Road trip.
Add that in. Absolutely.
Yep. I've discovered it's free. Admission is free.
Well, dang, definitely got to add that in.
Right?
Free stop. That's a perfect
It opened in
stop.
1992, and they now have a collection that houses over 6,000 jars from all 50 states and more than 70 countries. So that gives you an idea of how many mustards there are today and how far it spans across the world as a condiment. But then you might be thinking, what about good old French's mustard, which is what I think of in the American mustard category on your hot dog or whatnot.
Yes.
French's actually was produced by the RT French Company, which is based in your home city of Rochester.
Rochester, New York, baby. It's true. I know. That was always a thing when I was growing up. Everyone was always like, oh, well, French's, that's from Rochester.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, I saw that they had several sponsorships in Rochester and that also Zweigel's, which is your famous hot dog.
The hot dog situation that goes on the trash plate. Yes, they're definitely a partner with Zweigel's for sure. French's started in Rochester a long time ago. It started in 1883 in Rochester. Well, I guess technically in Fairport, but then that one burned down and then they moved to Rochester.
Right, like a year later or something.
1884. Yeah. And the second president, George, he's the one that developed the creamy yellow mustard that made French's famous.
Yes, which it's kind of claimed to fame as being a milder mustard, but very tangy because of the vinegar.
Yes. Yeah. And did you find out the reason why French's became popular and yellow mustard in the US in general became popular?
I did see that.
I thought that was kind of fun. So basically, during the World's Fair in St. Louis, 1904, French's wanted to introduce their mustard to people. And so they were like, okay, what can we put this on to get people to want to eat it? And hot dogs were becoming very popular at the time. And the bright yellow mustard on the hot dog looked so cool that they were like, okay, perfect. So they started handing out their hot dogs at the World's Fair with French's yellow mustard on it. Fun fact, French's mustard, the reason why it's so yellow is because it has a little turmeric.
Yep, I saw that too.
The color.
Yep. Yeah. So that is not actual mustard color.
No, definitely not. Mustard's more like brown.
Yeah.
But, it really popped out on the hot dogs back at the World's Fair. And so then everyone was like, oh, this is amazing. And honestly, since then it became synonymous as a hot dog topping, really.
Right.
A lot of places you go and get a hot dog and mustard is the condiment for a hot dog.
Right. I know people have very strong feelings about that too.
Oh yeah, like you do not put ketchup on your hot dog.
Right.
You put mustard.
It's mustard, and it's the yellow French's, I would say.
Yep, 100%.
I love a good yellow mustard sometimes. I guess I wouldn't put any other kind of mustard on my hot dog, to be honest. If mustard's going on my hot dog, it's French's.
Yeah.
So
I might put a different kind of mustard on a hamburger, maybe a Dijon or a whole grain. But yeah, a hot dog, definitely French's. For sure.
Then it has a very distinct taste.
Yeah. I love a good
But that's really
mustard.
funny that their whole reasoning for that was more aesthetic than anything. It just looks cool. So I mean, like, I'm sure they thought it would taste good too. Yeah. But that the color and whatnot was like the eye-catching thing that really made it take off.
That was the same thing though, back to relish. I saw, you know how on Chicago dogs they have that really bright green relish? So it has a little blue dye in it. And that's what makes it so green. And it was really just a color situation. It was like, oh, look how cool it looks. It's so green.
That is a very iconic Chicago dog. Interesting.
I guess that goes back to condiments being something to top your food with.
Right? Or
adds
garnish.
Color to the top of your food.
Yeah, that's true. Because when they listed garnish as a potential type of condiment, I was like, oh, I didn't even think about that. But you're right. A lot of times a garnish is not only taste, but look.
Hot mustard always makes me think similarly, though, to wasabi.
I actually decided to look up wasabi as well because shout out to my Japanese side of the family. And I love wasabi. So I'm also not a big spicy foods person, but I do love a mustard spice or a horseradish spice. But it turns out, and I did not know this, but wasabi that we eat here in the US with our sushi is not actually like the wasabi that they produce in Japan. Wasabi does belong to the same family as mustard and horseradish, but it is its own plant. And it grows naturally in Japan along stream beds in the mountains. And then it's also common in the far east of Russia.
Okay.
But basically this wasabi plant, they use the rhizome, which the rhizome is under the ground and it's where the roots grow out from. So very specifically, the rhizome of the plant, they harvest.
So not even the root part, like the potato.
No. Yeah.
It's like the shoot.
Right. Okay. That produces the roots. Yeah. And it has to be under the ground. So it also has leaves, but they don't use the leaves or anything like that. They said the rhizome specifically, sometimes a little part of the stem. And then that's what's ground up and used as wasabi in Japan.
Wow.
Yeah. And then because Japan can't really mass produce wasabi plants or mass cultivate them.
Such a specific thing.
Yes.
That would be hard to mass produce.
Therefore, it becomes very expensive, and then making it available outside of Japan, very challenging. So in the US or in Western wasabi preparations, they use the horseradish plant as a substitute. So it's like actually a completely different plant. It has the same kind of flavor. But now I'm realizing I've probably never had real wasabi.
That's crazy. Unless you went to Japan, because it's probably not easily available outside.
Right. Wow. Or very expensive. And then the green color that you see in the wasabi that you would get on the side of your sushi is actually from ground up spinach powder. It's just added in to make it look.
Colorings. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, because the wasabi plant that produces wasabi in Japan, the end result is a little bit green. So then when they make it with horseradish here, horseradish is white. So they put some green stuff in it to make it look green.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So oftentimes, the wasabi that you would buy here or get on the side with your sushi might be referred to as wasabi, but it's actually horseradish, which is a different plant. Same family of plants, but definitely different.
I wonder if Japanese wasabi is as hot and nasal clearing as...
I would guess.
Probably.
Yes, because it's in the same family of plants. And because from what I read, horseradish is the most similar to what the wasabi plant would taste like. But I guess I don't know because all the wasabi I've eaten apparently is actually just horseradish.
Yeah. But then that makes sense that horseradish and mustard and wasabi, they're all related because they all give that similar sort of nose.
Nasally. Yeah, and that quick punch in your face that then subsides a little bit. So I thought that was really interesting too. And it's been around in Japan for a long time. So they do have records that date back to the 8th century AD of
Japanese picking the specific part of this plant.
Yes. Yep.
And
Harvesting
eating
it,
it.
pulling it out of the ground and cutting off the rhizome specifically.
So, who discovered that?
That's
all I have to say.
I don't know. Yeah.
Wow. That's nuts.
Yeah.
Man. I didn't realize that wasabi production was so intense. I
Yep.
don't know. I feel like it tracks. Japan has this way of like, let's produce food in the most labor intensive way possible.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of like Wagyu beef and square watermelons.
Yes. Yeah. It's true. It's true. Even the way they present food is very specific and labor intensive. I think that's definitely a reflection of the overall cultural values, but you're right. They do have a way of doing that.
That's crazy.
So now I'm really curious. I want to know what real wasabi tastes like. Because they also said that even though horseradish is used as a substitute, they might also mix mustard in as well. So there could be some mustard seeds as well as horseradish. It just depends on the preparation. But that's the substitute for wasabi here. No, I'm about to go to the international grocery store to look on the shelf and see if they sell real Japanese wasabi instead of
it's probably like $80 for a tiny little
I know.
jar.
Just like your Wagyu beef, right?
Yeah,
like, way overpriced.
Man. So did you look up mayonnaise since it's your favorite?
Of course I did. I was going to say last, but certainly not least on my list would be mayonnaise. Where does mayonnaise come from? So mayonnaise did have kind of an interesting history because there are competing theories as to who invented it.
It's a Sloppy Joe situation.
It is. And seemingly, too, there's some argument between the countries about who is responsible for inventing mayonnaise.
The intrigue.
The two most credible stories that are competing are French or Spanish. So one of these origin stories, which they do find in secondary sources, says that mayonnaise was created in 1756 after French forces under the command of Duc de Richelieu laid siege to Port Mahon. And this would be on the island of Minorca, which is now part of Spain, in the first European battle of the 7 Years' War. And that this Duke's chef found that the island did not have the cream that he needed for a quote-unquote victory sauce, right? It's like he was...
We have to eat specific sauces when we have a victory battle? Okay, sure.
Yeah, I got the sense that it's like he's making this meal after their victory, and it's supposed to be a celebration, and he would have needed cream for his sauce.
All right.
But they didn't have it, and therefore he invented an egg and oil dressing that he dubbed mayonnaise, because we're talking about the island of or Port Mahon.
Right.
So mayonnaise.
Okay.
And there was a side note that some people say that the chef actually learned the recipe from island residents. So that seems like a reasonable possibility in my mind.
Sure. Okay.
So then the competing story is that there is a Gallic province and that the sauce, which is in France, so the sauce may have originally been called Bayonnaise after Bayonne, a town that was famous in Europe for its succulent hams. So
ham and mayonnaise, that's what I think of.
So they also suggest that the name could have come from manier, meaning to handle, or moyeu, an old French word for yolk. So the French are saying, no, it probably came from Bayonne, and it was called Bayonnaise. But I couldn't find any specific story about why there.
Yeah.
It existed
and if it's famous
there
for ham, like, are we putting mayonnaise on ham? That doesn't seem like a common pairing.
So then I also saw that in the 1920s that a Madrid chef in Spain published a pamphlet calling on his countrymen to reject the phony francophone term mayonnaise in favor for salsa mayonnaise. So this is a Spanish-French rivalry thing that's been going on with mayonnaise, apparently, for a long time.
Fascinating. Even though I feel like Belgium and the Netherlands are meanwhile just consuming all of the mayonnaise.
So I will say this, whoever invented it, we're not sure. It seems like leaning towards the Spanish because there's more of a story there, but who knows?
Yeah.
And
it's an old condiment.
Right. But the French chefs, French cuisine definitely made it popular as a condiment. Okay. So they were using it a lot. And in the early 19th century, it started to spread to England and Germany and other areas in Europe. So whether or not the French invented it, they definitely pushed forward the popularity of it by using it in a lot of their dishes.
Yeah.
It didn't become popular in America until around 1838. And the way it became popular in America was through, quote unquote, salads. Salads meaning potato salad or the classic Waldorf salad, which is like grapes and nuts and other thing coated in a mayonnaise like dressing. And in that time too, New York restaurants were starting to offer dishes like lobster mayonnaise and a chicken mayonnaise, which just lobster and mayonnaise and chicken with a mayonnaise sauce. So that's where the popularity in America really started to take off. And then in the 1920s, after the bread slicer was invented, people started making more sandwiches, and a natural condiment or addition to those sandwiches became mayonnaise. So
wait, is mayonnaise the next best thing to sliced bread?
I mean, I would say yes, because arguably, back to our condiment versus ingredient discussion.
Right.
It seems like it was more of an ingredient
before sandwiches.
Sliced bread. Yeah, before sliced bread.
Wow.
So once they automated slicing bread, then it became more of a condiment. From there, the rest is history. Hellmann's, Duke's, everybody had their own mayonnaise recipe and which one's the best and all of that good stuff. And then in order to create a cheaper version, they came up with the charlatan, the mayonnaise imposter. That is called Miracle Whip. I have strong feelings.
Yeah, I am not a Miracle Whip person. I know some people are definitely Miracle Whip people, but number one, it's not mayonnaise. It's its own food. It's its own food. So it's not a substitute.
Yeah.
It's its own version. If you want Miracle Whip on a sandwich, that's fine. But
don't call it.
Do not substitute mayonnaise for Miracle Whip. Two different foods.
Agreed. 100% agree. And who knows, was it invented by the French or the Spanish? I don't know, but I love it either way.
Man, I mean, okay, this is really just clearly scratching the surface on condiments because I didn't even touch hot sauce. I feel like hot sauce could just be its own whole episode because there's so much that goes into that.
I don't know. I thought about hollandaise.
Yeah, hollandaise.
That was something that I came across the other day that's been around for a long time. That's also a really famous
dressings,
sauce. Right, salad dressings.
Barbecue sauce.
Barbecue.
I didn't even touch that.
Started look at barbecue and then I was like, oh no, this could be a whole episode because barbecue also very interesting and many varieties.
So many varieties depending on where you are located.
Yes.
We didn't even get into the colored ketchup craze of the late 90s.
Oh, goodness. Wow. I had blocked that out. Emily.
The purple ketchup.
Oh, yeah, the purple one. That's the one I remember from the commercial. I don't think we ever purchased that. I was like, no, I don't want it. I don't like it. It's too weird.
I definitely think we had it at like my grandma's house or something.
Yeah.
Just for fun.
Probably like as a novelty.
A fun thing.
So funny.
But, oh man, definitely not.
So yeah, who knows? I mean, if you guys enjoyed this rabbit hole, perhaps there will be a part 2, but this is a very big rabbit hole that we could go down.
Yeah. Yeah, to be honest, when you first proposed condiments, I was like, I don't even know where to start with this scenario. Yeah. And clearly we could have gone a lot of different directions and there's still so much to discuss here. I will say that, I don't know, I also thought ketchup was a very American condiment, but now I'm like, maybe relish is actually
Yep. Maybe that's the ultimate American condiment.
The ultimate American condiment. I don't know.
And I think what I enjoyed so much about doing this research for this episode is that, when you say condiments, it sounds just kind of basic, but then when you get into it, like you said, there are so many, but also it's something that's universally in every type of cuisine around the world.
Yes.
Every country, every culture has developed some kind of condiment as part of their food consumption. So I don't know. It was kind of cool to realize that even ketchup, which seemed to be such an American condiment, we're talking about Chinese origins.
Right.
Or mustard, which I thought, because it's so popular in Germany, but actually that's perhaps the most ancient condiment of all.
Right.
So there's a lot more to it than I realized.
Yeah. And I feel like there's condiments that I probably don't even know about because they're popular in other countries. Like Heinz has factories all over the world that's making condiments for specific markets.
Right.
In Indonesia or whatever. And
right. Yeah.
We're not even touching any of those condiments. Right.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's crazy. What's your favorite condiment? Drop us a line and let us know.
Yes. And think about the next time you're dipping your chicken tendy in your preferred sauce. Where did that one come from?
Where did that sauce come from? Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for listening to Researching the Obvious. To learn more fun facts about everything that we're researching, follow us on Instagram at Researching the Obvious Pod, all one word. You can also follow us on Spotify, Amazon Music, or wherever you get your podcasts. If you know someone that you think would enjoy listening to all of our findings, please feel free to share or give us a review. Researching the Obvious is written, produced, edited, and hosted by Emily Fekete and Katie Nakanishi. Tune in next time to hear more obvious facts.